For this lesson, we are going to use some markers to do some different kinds of line quality and adding value. So what I suggest is in your sketchbook, right? So I've got my sketchbook opened up. I'm in the independent study section. And let's just choose a quarter of a page. So I already have some drawings I've done before. So I'm just going to use this one little section. So I'm going to divide it up just to give me a smaller space to work within. And I want you to think about the different kinds of lines. Okay, so here we have a list of different lines that we're going to work with and some things with value that we'll try out. So I have a really skinny, it's like a skinny Sharpie, a fine tip, or a Micron pen would work if you have one of those, or a Sharpie. If you do not have Sharpie, you can use a water-based marker. Maybe try out having a thick and a thin if you have them. So let's start with different kinds of line qualities, right? So we have thin lines, so that could be a thin line. And let's see if we can even like turn it into a little bit of a project. Maybe the line quality changes, so it goes from thin to thick. Thin lines, I would still consider these kind of thin, and then they change. So maybe it's thin, thicker, and really thick, right? So they change. And I haven't just made one single line. I played around with them to make sort of a design so it becomes a little bit more artistic than just a line. Maybe the length of the line changes. And now we have diagonal lines. And maybe we can switch to vertical lines. In the back of the book, in the reference section, you have a page about elements of art, and then after that you have this page on lines. So it gives you all these different kinds of lines. And notice that there is thick, and there's thin, broken, dotted, dashed, all these different cool ideas. And here are some examples of line designs. So feel free to pull from any of these as a resource to give them a try. So this is curving, this is also curving. So some kind of spirally thing. So I've created curving lines. Maybe I'm going to mix in the line quality that changes, that's integrated with those. We have dashed lines. Oh, we don't have zigzag. So your zigzags could have a change in the cadence of the amount of zigging and zagging, or your zigzags can be pretty much even. Okay, so I think we have thick lines, we have thin lines, we have curving lines, we have zigzagging lines, we have vertical, dotted, dashed, horizontal, diagonal. So we've filled that up pretty good. Now I'm going to add in some shapes. So I'm going to try out, I'm going to have a circle, and I'll do another circle over here. And I want you to try stippling. So stippling is adding value. So we have another element of art, and we've done some shading in our drawing unit, and this is another way to do this. So when we did a value scale, you worked from light to dark. So imagine that this is my darkest value at the edge of the sphere, and the closer I put the dots together, the darker it is. The more I spread out the dots, the lighter it is. So if you blend your eyes and blur your eyes, you can see the dots blending, and then you can look for areas where like this is uneven here, so I'm going to add a little bit more. So that is called stippling. So I'm going to actually do scumbling on this one. So scumbling is sort of like these crazy figure eights. Same idea as the stipple. Is the more scribbles, the more scumbling is actually what it's called. The darker and closer it is together, the darker the value is. Alright, and then I'm going to start spreading them out as they get to the other side of the sphere. A way to check yourself is to squint or blur your eyes as you're working and look for areas that are too dark. Right here I see an area that's dark and it's not dark around it, so I'm going to blend that out. So that's called scumbling. And scumbling is really just kind of like these wacko marks or, you know, sort of like figure eights that go out of control. Okay, then we have hatching. So let's try this on like a column. So imagine I have a column here. So hatching would be, you can use either marker for this. Hatching are parallel lines to create value. So that would be hatching. And I could go a little bit more on this side. And the closer the lines are together, the darker it is. So I could go in and I can add another. If I wanted to do cross hatching, I would do pretty much the same thing. But this time I go the opposite direction as well. So you're kind of creating an X. Because the column is round, I think I want to try some rounded lines. And it's really kind of the same thing, but I'm doing hatching, but I'm making those lines curve. To me, that looks much more realistic than the straight lines. So try it out and see what works best for you. What's happening is the light is hitting down the center of this column and it's wrapping backwards, so you have some value on one side. Alright, so I want you to give it a try. Look at this, how much I was able to fit within this space. Overlapping lines, or interconnecting, changing around. Try out all these different things. Stipple, hatching, cross-hatching, scumbling. Your different lines, you have thick, thin, curving, zigzag, diagonal, horizontal, vertical, dotted, and dashed. And don't forget, at the back of your sketchbook you have a list of all of these things and some different things that you can try out. Okay, have fun!